This is Anna.
This is Christina.
This is Tanya.
And you're listening to
Life,
Crime, and
Life,
Betrayal.
Crime, and Betrayal.
Life, Crime, and Betrayal.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of our Gabriel Fernandez case. Just trigger warnings. We are going to go a little bit more in depth in the case. We are going to show some videos. We're going to show some autopsy drawings that the coroner has done. So if there is anything that you feel like you won't be able to get through this, here's your trigger warning. Feel free to skip to the next episode. We don't know what the next episode is, so I wouldn't be able to tell you what it is. But trigger warnings are all there. I'm so sorry. Trigger warnings are all there. And I just wanted to say that we are going more in depth this time to do justice for Gabriel. His cousin had created a Facebook page called Justice for Gabriel Fernandez to spread awareness of those that completely pushed him aside just for their own benefit, and they let him fall through the system. The system did fail him, so this episode is in no means lighthearted or jokingly. We're not making conversation light this time, because this is a serious matter, especially when it's dealing with a child this young and parents this abusive. So we're going to try our best to do justice for Gabriel and to shed some light to this sweet, innocent boy that passed away.
Thank you, Tanya. So just a quick recap on the first episode. We left off where Gabriel Fernandez's teacher was calling in a lot of things that she was seeing when Gabriel was attending her classes, and that she was reporting to DCFS, and clearly not much or anything was done at this point. So if you recall, I left off where she had made a call to DCFS talking about seeing or witnessing Gabriel having being shot profusely with a BB gun. And if you recall, I also said he had a reddish eye on the corner, and that he had what looked like to her burn marks on his forehead, or healing burn marks on his forehead. And I'm only saying that again because it connects with the next mandated reporter that actually came forward with concerns regarding potential abuse against Gabriel. So this mandated reporter, his name was Mr. Arturo Martinez, and he was an armed guard for the Los Angeles County at the time, who was working at the Department of Social Services. Basically, the Social Services was an agency where citizens typically applied for welfare and benefits. On October 26, 2013, he observed a disturbing scene when Pearl Fernandez arrived at the department, accompanied by her four children, and Martinez noticed that Gabriel, one of the children, had visible injuries on his body. Specifically, he saw what appeared to be cigarette burns on the back of Gabriel's head, along with bruises around his eye that were purple and greenish in color. In addition to these injuries, Gabriel's hands and fingers bore multiple markings and signs of trauma. And then if you remember guys, in the first episode, there was significant damage to Gabriel's eye. He had marks on his face and head and those burn marks. And he also, if you recall, we were showing you pictures where Gabriel was holding up the letters MOM because they were doing a Mother's Day project. And if you look at those photos again, he had a lot of marks on his hands. So both these mandated reporters, their stories are they're aligning with each other because they all happened around the same time. Mr. Arturo Martinez, despite being advised by supervisors of his department not to get involved, because this freaking this blew my mind. So on the Netflix series, he's interviewed, and Mr. Martinez does say that originally none of his supervisors wanted him to do anything about seeing Gabriel clearly being abused because they were worried and I quote, they were worried about paying people over after hours, basically, or over what's it called? Not after hours, but when you like,
Overtime.
thank you, overtime dealing with this claim against Pearl Fernandez. And he said that even though the fact that he believed or he thought that he might lose his job if he went forward, he did it anyway. Martinez felt compelled to act, believing obviously it was the right thing to do. So he overrode his supervisor's direction and he reported his concerns to the sheriff's department, urging them to immediately investigate Gabriel's welfare because what he had witnessed was very, very concerning. And if you're wondering, when he called into the sheriff's department, if he had to give all the information, so he had to give what he saw, he had to give Gabriel's address, where he lived, and all this personal information about Gabriel. However, I guess technically speaking, he said he was not allowed to do that because he did not have the seniority to even look at that information. So he was going against policy by doing that, but he did it anyway. This action highlighted another significant failure in the system that tragically had failed Gabriel, because it was later revealed that law enforcement had been called to check on Gabriel multiple times prior to this report. In total, sheriffs visited the family approximately 5 different occasions, with 8 deputies involved across these visits. However, each time they arrived, they simply took the mother's word that the accusations were unfounded without properly investigating or interviewing Gabriel. Not once did they remove him for or question him or take any of the claims seriously. Additionally, no documentation was ever created regarding these visits, leaving no official records or written accounts of the sheriff's interaction with the family. So, how I gather this, and then you guys can weigh in on it. The sheriffs, when they were told to go, like told about these claims and they went to visit Gabriel, what you should do, and this is like police work that everybody should know. When you have incidences, you're supposed to separate every party because you don't want conflicting statements. So if the sheriffs or the police are being informed that Gabriel is being abused by his mother or is being abused by the mother's boyfriend, you should not question Gabriel in front of his quote unquote alleged abusers at this time,
Yeah.
because obviously he's going to agree with whatever his parents are saying, because he's going to be thinking, if I tell the truth, maybe I'm going to get abused worse than what I've already been receiving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So none of that was done. The police didn't report anything. The only documentation that was ever created about these visits were literally what they digitally had to put in their computer in their car to get to that place. But there was nothing in regards to his injury, nothing regarding the incidents, no details at all. And if you can, Tanya, I have a couple of videos, the first 2 videos that I shared with you,
Yeah.
just a little bit about some parts of the trial, what Gabriel's teacher had witnessed, Jennifer Garcia, and I just think it'll give you a little bit more insight on the things that this poor kid had to go through.
Again, fair warning, this is a trigger warning. This will be a news report. We are grabbing it from YouTube, so that is where Anna is sharing our stuff, or it has grabbed this stuff. So we're going to just. Okay.
I don't know if there's any teachers who listen to our podcast, but it's funny because I had this conversation with my students today. The girls know about this. So, Tanya, you come listening to Gabriel from like a mom perspective because you have a kid. I sympathize or empathize with the teacher because I come in it from like a teacher perspective. And today I got annoyed with my students, and we were just talking. And I was just like, just so you know, like as a teacher, my job doesn't end at 2 o'clock. Like I go home and I think about you guys. I go home and I lesson plan and I understand that because that's what I accepted when I became a teacher. And last week I had a student of mine pass away. She was terminally ill from cancer and she passed away. And it was like a really just like rough week and it resonated with me. She's one of my favorite students. She was our student council president and we lost her, and that just like it resonated, and we lost her through like no means of other than the fact that she was sick. God called her, it was her time, whatnot, blah blah blah. To be Gabriel's teacher, I don't know how I could have gone to work every day. I struggled to go to work last week. I struggled to come to terms with the fact that I had lost my student. And I was mad at different people for different reasons, right? Like, why was this 18-year-old going through this? I can't even wrap my head around the fact that what old was he?
7 or 8,
6?
8.
An 8-year-old was going through this. Like, to be that teacher, and then to know that you called CPS and you contacted your principal and you contacted police and no one did anything.
Yeah.
All right. So once again, this is ABC7, and this is Palmdale Boy's teacher says he confided in her about abuse at home.
Yeah, Michelle, Mark, there really isn't a reprieve in this case. Each day of this trial, very difficult. On the stand today, Gabriel's first grade teacher, she spent the most time with Gabriel and said that he opened up to her about the abuse he was experiencing at home.
Written in the shaky, unsure handwriting of a first grader, Gabriel's teacher reads a note she found hidden in the 8-year-old's desk a few days after she learned of his brutal death.
I love you, Mom, and Gabriel is a good boy.
Jennifer Garcia said Gabriel confided in her early on in the school year, telling her he was beaten at home. Garcia immediately reported this to the Department of Children and Family Services.
She's like, well, sometimes my mom makes me bleed. And I said, well, where do you bleed? And he says, well, on my body. Because she hits me with a belt. And he's like, you know that part with the metal on it? He's like, that part.
Over the next few months, Garcia said she saw repeated bruises, burns, wounds, and other injuries on the boy, and said in at least one instance, Gabriel came to school wearing girls' clothes. Defendant Isario Aguirre remained emotionless with his eyes on the table in front of him as Garcia described seeing Gabriel become more withdrawn and lash out in anger when questioned about his injuries.
Are you sure that that's what really happened? And then he did eventually tell me, and he was like really angry, and he said, well, it's because my mom shot me in the face with a BB gun.
Garcia said she called DCFS multiple times and then realized Gabriel was suffering more abuse because of it.
I didn't want to call. I didn't know what to do. I don't know. I could look at his face and, not be able to assure him that that wasn't going to happen again when I couldn't say that.
When Gabriel was absent for several days, Garcia was told he had been sent to live with family in Texas. The teacher hoped this was true. Roughly a week later, Gabriel was dead.
Now, the prosecution is expected to rest his case by next Wednesday. Then, of course, the defense has the opportunity to present its case for the defendant, Isario Aguirre. Live in downtown Los Angeles, I'm Darsha Phillips. We'll send it back to you.
Like, how do you have the mental capacity? How do you even I understand. Okay, Hispanic families, South American families, the way they used to discipline their children is yes, with the belt. I've got it with my dad, like my dad did it with my brother, vice versa, my mom to me, like whatever. But it was never to the point where I was bleeding.
Yeah.
Obviously there's no trauma there because honestly, we understood that there's actions to consequences, but now that the world's evolving, we understand gentle parenting and all this other stuff, right? There are different ways of doing it. But to be a grown ass adult and to whip, and I mean whip, because it's not even hitting at this point. You are literally whipping a grade 1 child, someone that is 1/3 of your height, less than half your weight, no defense system, nothing, and to just make him bleed and think that he deserves it is an absolute monster. I look at my daughter, she's 3. We were baking with her. How do you even fathom hurting someone that young?
I just, because there is another clip right after this one from the teacher that I want you to play, but I'm also I'm thinking about if I don't know, I was like, if I was a teacher and I had to see that and feel like, what do I do? And there's only so much that you can do. And it's kind of, I don't know. I don't know how I don't know if would be able to handle that situation. I don't think anyone really can, but it's just, you know what I mean?
Honestly, what I would have done, like if I was a teacher, and I know I'm talking out of my ass because that poor teacher probably had her hands tied and she probably thought about this, I would have kidnapped the kid. I would have. And then go into the go into the police department and be like, "Hey, I took him out of a tough situation." You know?
Yeah.
And
Can I
keep
just say
kidnapping him.
like from a teacher perspective, like it's lame. And it's moments like this where I struggle with a lot of different things. Like I think I said to different people, I think I said to you guys too, like there's such evil people in this world, and Gabriel's parents and stepdad are an example of that. But yet Gabriel's the one that dies. My student dies of cancer. It's like evil people get to live and reign on, and then these beautiful, innocent, gentle, sorry, are taken from us. And yeah, Tanya, like I can't tell you how many times a student has confided in me in a parental issue. Like oh my God, so many parental issues I've heard in the last 5 years that I've been teaching, and it's just like I want to hold them and I want to take care of them and I want to make it better. But nothing prepares you for that. Like as someone who went through teachers college here, nothing prepares you for that. You learn your curriculum. You learn your curriculum, you learn how to execute that curriculum, and no one prepares you for the really hard days that you come to work and crap like this happens in your classroom. There's no lesson, there's no how-to book on what do you do if a kid comes up to you and says that his mom beats his ass so hard that he bleeds. What do you do when a student dies of cancer? There's nothing. You show up to work and you teach your math lesson. You read Lord of the Flies, and life goes on, and you're just supposed to blink and everything's okay. But it's not.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. I don't, yeah.
And the worst part is that he unconditionally loved his mother. You know?
Yes, that part breaks my freaking heart the
After
most.
all this, all he wanted was her love. And that piece of shit is going to come out of jail.
You know what's funny? We're like I mentioned Lord of the Flies, and if you're not familiar with the story, it's about a bunch of boys who get stranded on an island, and they like end up killing each other and blah blah blah. And one of
Hunger
the-
Games is what it was
yeah,
based
basically. And the age-old question associated with the book is why does Golding use children to tell the story? Because the story is humans are evil. We're evil, and the right circumstances bring that out in us. Gabriel's parents were super evil, and I don't understand how a child brings out that circumstance in you. But what you just said about unconditional love, like I taught my students today, like I think Golding uses children to tell his story because children are so innocent, they're so pure, they love you unconditionally, and Gabriel's such a prime example of that.
Yeah.
Like not so much now because I'm older, but when I was younger, yeah, if someone did me dirty, like I don't know, we're not friends anymore. I hate you. We're done. Like his parents did that to him, and he still made her a Mother's Day card and begged for her love. Like I can't even like, I don't know.
Before we continue, I would like to show how unconditional his love was. Because this picture is just going to show that even though this man was an absolute piece of shit, Gabriel smiled all the time. So let me just share so that way we can understand Christina's unconditional love. So this is from Gabriel's cousin. She created a Facebook page called Gabriel's Justice where she keeps posting, and she's an advocate for child abuse.
Beautiful.
And this picture is Gabriel with his siblings and the piece of shit he called a stepfather.
Oh, that's his actual father. No, that's his actual father.
Oh, that's his father. Okay, sorry. My bad. Not a piece of shit. But yeah,
He kind of looks like the dad.
he does.
Actually, they all really look super
He,
alike.
he draws on my heartstrings too.
The dad?
Yeah. Because I fell for him because he was in prison when Gabriel died.
Jesus.
So he was like,
Can't even get closure.
yeah. And he feels like if I was out, I would have been able to take him out of that situation. So he tries.
He's probably another example of how the system let him down. Because what's he in jail for? A misdemeanor of some sort?
I don't know. We should look into that. Okay, well, here is from ABC7, once again. Teacher of slain Palmdale boy testifies during penalty phase of convicted killer. And once again, all videos can be found on YouTube.
Did you tell him it was an accidental death?
Secretly recorded in the Antelope Valley Jail, Pearl Fernandez demanding answers from defendant Isauro Aguirre. She has seen the autopsy of her 8-year-old son, Gabriel.
He suffered from a brain concussion, like it cracked, and I'm gonna call it from cardiac arrest.
Her questions, not about how it happened, but how much Aguirre had spilled to detectives.
Do you know why they got that murder charge on me? Because you said I was inside the room.
No squabbling, no expressions of sorrow. According to prosecutors, it's another reason Aguirre should be put to death. Add to that the impact of Gabriel's death at his school. First grade teacher Jennifer Garcia had reported his many wounds, including the pockmarked BB shots on Gabriel's face. Then, knowing his death would be all over the news,
I had to look at those kids in the face and I had to tell them that their classmate was not coming back.
answering their probing questions.
I had to explain to those kids, his mom killed him. They'd say, what happened to him? You know, I had to explain to them that there's good people and bad people in the world, and sometimes those bad people could be parents.
Wrenching testimony underscored by a graphic display.
So let the record reflect that the detective's holding a black, high-powered BB gun.
The weapons Aguirre used to beat Gabriel over an 8-month period. A metal baton and wooden bats. Aguirre's trial revealed that Gabriel would be beaten anytime social workers would ask questions about his injuries. Gabriel's teacher.
And then I do the whys. Why didn't they ask this? Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they go a step farther? Why didn't they take him out? And I go through all those questions and it eats at my stomach. I think about it every day, all the time.
Miriam Hernandez, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Did you tell him?
Can I just say, like, kudos to Jennifer Garcia. You're a beautiful person inside and out. I don't know how she didn't cry on that stand. I couldn't talk about my student's death for a good week without bawling. So the fact that she sat up there and reiterated that story takes immeasurable strength.
I'm sure she wanted to cry.
Yeah.
I'm sure she did.
Immeasurable.
Because you could hear it in her voice too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bat? A bat.
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand why people don't think it was premeditated. Like, okay, Tanya, you said that your dad gave you
Little pow pows.
little pow pows.
Yeah, my
here and
mom.
there.
They kept it.
I don't know who didn't. But like, it was a hand. It was a belt. It wasn't a freaking baton. Like a baseball bat.
A slipper. A wooden spoon.
Yeah,
like, you know?
A slipper. A wooden spoon.
And like we're not here to make light of the situation because because our ancestors, our family relatives, they didn't know any better. That's how they were taught. They're immigrants that came from where they came from. That's what they grew up with. So
It was the norm.
it was normal for them. That's fine. We came to our peace with it. We understand that consequences that we did have actions. This boy had no right to be beaten with a bat by a fucking monster.
Two monsters.
Two monsters.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay, continue before I
think the part that gets me, and this is in no way, shape, or form claiming that just because someone's not your biological son or daughter, that doesn't mean there's no parental relationship. Because I could argue that if Agiri, what's his name? Izadio, was an actual father figure, a dad to that kid, right? 100%. A father's a father, no matter paternity test or not. But it's like you did nothing to take care of that kid, and then nothing to be a father figure to him, considering that his own father was in jail, and then you think you have the right to do that to him? He's not even your kid.
Agreed. I agree. So we were talking about all the systematic failures that happened with Gabriel. So obviously it wasn't just DCFS, it was also the local sheriff department. And then something else had occurred during his trial that was also a huge letdown for me personally. So during the trial, prosecutor John Hatami discovered, to his surprise, that there had also been an internal affairs investigation into the sheriff's department regarding these lapses within Gabriel's case. However, the crucial piece of information was not uncovered through the prosecutor himself. It was actually the defense who found out that there was an internal investigation going on against the sheriff's department. So, of course, at this point, the prosecutor's like, what the fuck? So he then goes to the sheriff's department and is asking, I need to know what's going on with the internal affairs. I need these documents. I need to know why there's even an internal affair investigation against the sheriff's department. And the way he explains it was he was like, I was being ignored. Nobody was answering my phone calls. Nobody was answering my emails. Everyone was giving me the runaround, which is odd because, as you know, prosecutors work with the sheriff's department. They work with the police. They're supposed to be hand in hand. And it was so bad that he had to actually file a pitches motion. So usually a pitches motion would be filed by the defense. And a pitches motion is a legal request normally made by a defendant to access personal records of law enforcement officers, because obviously law enforcement and defense are not really working hand in hand together. So the fact that the prosecutor had to submit this pitches motion goes to show that there was a lot more going on with Gabriel that was, to be unfair, like technically, let's say illegal. Like there should have been a lot more done with Gabriel's case that probably would have saved his life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you then hold resentment towards the social workers?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Before we continue on the topic of social workers, though, I did find ABC 7 Eyewitness News, and no, we're not biased. They just come up a lot because they did cover the story really well. They actually they actually have a couple of quotes from Gabriel's father, Arnold Contreras. So when Gabriel was tortured and murdered, his father, Contreras, said he was in prison for robbery and possession. Prior to that, he had been in and out of county jail. So this is what I'm actually reading from the website.
Thank you for finding that. So it was kind of like a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
Like robbery. What do you have? Weed?
Probably. So Contreras described the day he learned about Gabriel's injury and imminent death. He states, I was in Riverside County Jail and the chaplain pulled me out, said he was on life support and that they were going to take him off the next day. He also said, I don't know how to explain it. I felt hopeless, guilty. I should have been there. The prosecutors asked him, if you were out of custody, would you have visited Gabriel like you did before? And he said yes. So when asked what he would tell Gabriel today, Contreras said, I'm sorry for not being there.
Oh, God.
So Gabriel's father said he asked to see Gabriel in the hospital, but they didn't let me. He said he's forever impacted by Gabriel's death and can't sleep at night.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I can imagine. And if you want, there is the third clip for the one that I sent for the trials, actually his father on the stand. So we can show them a little bit of that.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
But no, I can't even imagine like being so helpless, the fact that you could not do anything because you're in lockup.
That is so bullshit, man.
This was much anticipated. The defendant, Isauro Aguirre, throughout the trial, has not looked up at the witnesses or at any of the,
he's a fucking
exhibits.
coward.
Today, Aguirre remained focused on the desk in front of him and the witness, Mr. Contreras, Gabriel's dad, never looked his way. Arnold Contreras testifies that the death of his son changed his life and the lives of Gabriel's siblings.
The family will never be seen. Everybody was in the fight.
Contreras says he is racked with guilt. He was serving time, unable to watch over his son.
Hopeless, guilty. I should have been there.
Had he been able, he would have stopped Gabriel's mother, Pearl Fernandez, and her boyfriend, Isauro Aguirre, from taking Gabriel from the grandparents who adored him.
Pearl never showed any type of love towards Gabriel.
Contreras has been in court to see the pictures of Gabriel at the time of his death, too awful to put on TV. The jurors have reviewed them all, and now, as they consider whether Aguirre should be condemned to death, they hear descriptions of what Aguirre did to the 7-year-old. The doctor who did the autopsy says that charting injuries typically takes a day. For Gabriel, with so much trauma on top of malnutrition, it took 2 days. So tedious, extracting 9 BBs.
To make sure I got all the BBs, I had to take the body back into the x-ray room on the second day, fluoroscope the whole body to make sure there weren't any more metallic particles in the body.
The defense presented a teacher who testified that Aguirre earned D's and F's in his 10th grade English class and may have needed special education courses. The prosecution focused on Aguirre's torture of the child.
I have this picture of him, of this mutilated little body, seared into my mind, and that will stay with me forever. I can't forget that.
I felt terrible. I've never seen anything in my entire career. I've never seen anything like that. I wasn't prepared. I was speechless.
And every day there are arguments among the attorneys outside the presence of the jury. If the prosecution prevails, we may hear an audio recording between Aguirre and co-defendant Pearl Fernandez about what happened to Gabriel.
Oh my God. No remorse on her face.
No, that's his after. She just says, and him too. He just sits there, so like, doesn't look up once.
I don't know who bothers me more, him or her.
Both. But she bothers me more.
Yeah.
She bothers me more because she's supposed to be a maternal figure. She's supposed to protect her child at all costs. I would absolutely give my life for my daughter. You know? Like, I have this unconditional love for her. She doesn't know the world like we know it. Like, she has so much to learn, and yet you're going to... Oh, I can't.
Yeah, I know. It's
very tough.
It is, yeah. Now, sorry, go ahead.
And a note, like the reporter did say, the few photos, unfortunately, that have been online on Google of his wounds and the poor child's face, we won't show, but they're very, very, very hard to look at. It's very sad that two grown adults felt like this was a need to do. But should you want to do more deep diving to see how big of monsters these humans were, then go right ahead. But I just feel like we don't need to show them for Gabriel's sake.
Agreed. I think we should just put a little like respect for Gabriel in that sense.
Yeah.
And not only did the sheriffs have an internal affairs investigation going on, but of course so did the social workers at this point. So if you recall, there was 4 main social workers. So we had Stephanie Rodriguez, who was the first social worker to investigate Gabriel's case after the teacher had raised concern about potential abuse at home and when she was citing changes in Gabriel's in-school behavior. The teacher, of course, as we know, had suspected that Gabriel was being abused by the mother and the mother's boyfriend. Rodriguez had assured the teacher that she would thoroughly look into the matter, but unfortunately the situation only worsened for Gabriel. By November 2012, there was little to no follow-up on the case on Stephanie Rodriguez's side, and no tangible actions were taken to investigate further. Gabriel's teacher later had testified that the boy himself eventually was telling her to contact Rodriguez herself, indicating his desperation and fear. Despite these red flags, it seemed, from what I could gather, that Rodriguez was easily manipulated by Pearl's explanation for Gabriel's injuries. According to her notes, Rodriguez appeared to accept Pearl's reasoning without any question, rarely following up or verifying the claims to determine their truth. So one of their jobs as a social worker is if Jennifer Garcia is calling in and saying, Gabriel has a bruised eye, he's saying his mom punched him in the face. She is supposed to not only just go to Pearl and get her statement, but she's supposed to investigate Gabriel's comments as well and Gabriel's injuries. She's not supposed to just take Pearl's side for it. She's also, if she really wants to do her job, she's also supposed to maybe go question other family members and say, hey, is this something consistent, or is what Pearl's saying that, he fell down true? Like, she's supposed to be
cover all your bases.
Correct. That's a better way to explain it.
Got you.
Also, whenever there is a report of an injury, the social workers are required to chart the injury on a body chart in detail. So, noting the location of the injuries, the severity, any explanations provided, etc. However, in Gabriel's case, and keep in mind, guys, this guy was abused on a daily pretty much. So, the body chart, she only ever did it one time. Every other time, not a single injury or single incident was ever really documented or recorded. So the lack of the thoroughness contributed to a systematic failure to protect Gabriel. And then in December 2012, after the incident involving the BB gun, that is when another social worker comes into play. So Stephanie Rodriguez and Kevin Baum, who was Stephanie's supervisor, ended up handing over Gabriel's file and Gabriel's case to Patricia Clement and her supervisor, which was Gregory Merritt. Those are the four social workers who ended up being charged. So when Patricia Clement took over the case, she was exactly like Rodriguez. I'm inclined to think even worse.
Just to stop you there for 1 second,
Yes.
just to notify our viewers or to show our viewers who exactly we're talking about. This lady over here on the left with the glasses, or on the left, is Stephanie Rodriguez, and Clement, the second lady you are talking about, is this old hag in the middle.
Correct. And then you can't really see Kevin Baum, but he's there. And
He's right here, no? This is
right,
him.
this one.
Oh, so the dude behind Eugene Levy over here is Kevin Baum.
And
So there
then
were 6 social workers, no?
no, I think some of those other ones are the lawyers.
Yeah,
So
so
there
what
was-
I'm assuming is this blonde hag over here is defending her, and Eugene Levy is defending whoever, and this guy is probably a lawyer too, because she is Stephanie, she is old hag Clement, this one's another worker, social
Gregory.
worker,
Yeah.
and this one's another social worker. So lawyer, 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 or lawyer, 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 to this person and this person, this person. Yeah, this makes sense. Okay. So
I can't imagine, sorry, like being at your job and not covering all your bases. Like, my headphone keeps falling out. When I have like students, for example, because I can always enter this from a teacher perspective. So like when I have students and they're falling behind, they're late to class, they're absent a lot, they got 0 assessment pieces in marked, right? Like protocol is contact the parents. I would never not contact the parents. Your kid's failing, your kid's not doing well. Here's the issue. How do we fix this? How do we go forth? I don't understand. And I'm just a teacher. Like, you pass my English class, you pass it. You fail, you fail. It's not the end of the world. This is the end of the world. This is like human life you're talking about. And this girl, Stephanie, was just like, she didn't fight for the freaking kid. I'm fighting for you to come to class. I'm calling your parents. How are you dealt with this issue and not doing everything in your power to help them? There's no excuse from any of these people for me.
And the worst part is, I don't know if Anna's going to touch it. I'm pretty sure she'll touch upon it later. They did not get charged.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous to me. That should be a whole ass another trial.
Agreed. I 100% think that they should have been charged.
Just because they didn't want to do fucking paperwork, these pieces of shits let this poor innocent child die.
Let's talk a little bit about Patricia Clement. So when she took over the case, as I mentioned, she also failed to take really any necessary steps to properly investigate Gabriel's situation or follow up on his current living situation either. So both caseworkers minimized the signs of abuse, overlooking or misrepresenting critical evidence. Clement's reports reflected a shift in her perspective, initially claiming that she had witnessed some of Gabriel's abuse, only to later downplay the severity of the situation and state that she had only been investigating neglect, never abuse. In reality, Clement was falsifying documents, stating that Gabriel's home life was actually improving, that his risk of harm was decreasing, and as we know, that's absolutely false because his injuries were increasing and the severity of them were also increasing before he passed. And she was also saying that he was attending school regularly and excelling. But as we know from Jennifer Garcia, and when they pull records, it's very clear that he was missing a lot of school and his grades were actually suffering immensely. These claims were totally false and contradicted the reality of Gabriel's deteriorating health and well being. Despite the visible signs of physical and emotional abuse, the documentation carried out by both Stephanie Rodriguez and Patricia Clement significantly downplayed his situation. So their failure to accurately report Gabriel's condition and their reluctance to take any action allowed abuse to continue and left him in that household. And then the reason that Stephanie's supervisor, Kevin Baum, and Gregory Merritt, supervisor of Patricia Clement, were also charged because even though in their eyes they're not physically maybe the one who are going to Gabriel, they're the ones who are overlooking Patricia Clement's work and Stephanie Rodriguez. And if you notice that they're missing body charts, they're not documenting really anything about the calls or anything about the abuse, I am so sorry. That should be, that's what you're a supervisor for. That is your job. That is why you get paid more. And then I didn't like this. Again, if anybody wants to go more in depth into Gabriel Fernandez's case and the trial, I really recommend going to see the Netflix series. There was a colleague of the 4 social workers, and let me tell you, I think her name, what was her name? Her name was Shirley Darlene Starr. Let me tell you, she ain't no fucking star. She bothered me so much because she was just like, oh, everybody's just looking for a scapegoat, and that's why you're blaming the social workers, right? No, it wasn't. No. A mistake happens once, but if it's a continuous thing, that's no longer a mistake. That's laziness. That's disregard for Gabriel. You guys all knew that he was at high risk. He was labeled high risk. So there should be no reason that every time somebody called in an abuse, that they just took Pearl or Sadio's claim for it or their defense for it and wiped it clean and said, nah, Gabriel's fine. He's at high risk. He is going back into a household which had record of abuse to begin with. So it baffles me. And then this star lady was also saying about the teacher, and she was like, oh, why didn't nobody blame the teacher? The teacher should have just...
Oh, back the
Oh my
fuck
God,
up.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Oh my God.
No.
Yeah, she was like, if I was a teacher, I would have just taken him home with me. I would not allow him to go home. Yeah, but then that's kidnapping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like if Starlene knew about this case, why didn't she fucking do something, you know? Fuck you, Starlene. Shirley Darlene Starr. Fuck you. Because if you're about to go and blame the teacher and everyone under the sun and not your colleagues, then you have a fucking problem. Okay? Because she obviously, like, coworkers talk around the office, okay? Coworkers know cases. Okay, so if she knew that this was going on, she should have done something. If she's like, "Oh, the teacher should have done something," no, bitch, your coworker should have done something.
I can't even
oh,
fathom that sentence.
like, how do you? Okay, this one over here is old and looks like she should have experience. This whatever the fuck this old hag's name is, Stephanie Rodriguez. If you're so young and on this case, that you shouldn't even been put on if you're such a new social worker. And these 2 schlaps over here, like, one looks like he's out to lunch and the other one looks like he's dreaming about, like, watching something at night, you know? Like, they're both out to lunch.
And they did say that about Stephanie Rodriguez. They did say that she was new to the job and she was new pretty much in
that's
the
what I
field.
said on Netflix, yeah.
Yeah, and she was placed in a really important position because she's supposed to be the face now. So every time there's something that goes on, she's the one who's going to the household. She's the one that's technically getting the information.
She's the scapegoat.
She's investigating, basically. So you should put someone who has higher ranks, who has more experience, who understands.
Also, sorry I'm interrupting, her supervisor also looks young as fuck too.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like he should be a supervisor. Old Hag McGee over there looks like he should definitely be a supervisor. But both of them decided, oh, you know what? No paperwork, no this, no that. Just slap a okay and just let the kid be. No, this isn't a case of, oh, my dad hit me with a belt. No, this kid was actually physically getting abused. And they used Stephanie Rodriguez as a scapegoat. And that old hag to the left just had no remorse when she was talking in that Netflix documentary.
I agree.
Sorry, I'm very passionate about this, but these social workers have just as much fault as their parents, and they should absolutely get the same sentence as those parents.
I agree. I 100% agree. So it was sad when they didn't get charged because I don't think you were learning anything.
No.
I think it was great that they charged them to begin with, that the DA tried to charge them. But I think it's a misstep that the jury did not
No, they
charge
should
them.
absolutely be charged.
Yeah, I
They
agree.
should absolutely be charged. And if they think, oh, okay, whatever, like the social workers, blah, blah, they should charge the supervisors then.
Yeah.
The supervisors are in charge. Like, my supervisor is in charge to make sure that I get my shit done at work. My aunt's a supervisor, and she has to make sure that every freaking drawing, because she's an architectural technologist, every freaking architectural drawing that goes through her almost has zero mistakes because that costs money to fix. And these supervisors, you have innocent lives in your hands. Like, my cousin is about to graduate in a bachelor's of social work, okay? And minor in child and youth. And it's like she advocates so hard. She understands, and she is a mom too. But it's like, how do you just stand there? Like, okay, Stephanie looks like she has remorse. This one over here looks like she would rather be at home baking an apple pie, and these two over here are daydreaming about their like celebrity crushes. Like, these people have no remorse on their face. Like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna have that position, know that your mistake is a child's life.
Yeah.
It's a
The
lot
only
more.
eventually thing that they suffered is they lost their job. That was it. They were terminated
It's
from
a
their position.
band-aid.
Oh, big whoop. It's like slapping
Slap
a
on the
fucking,
wrist.
not even putting a lipstick on a pig.
Yeah, it's
No
literally
one's gonna hire them because of their reputation.
it's okay. Patricia Clement and the old supervisor were going to retire in 5 months
Hag 1 and
anyway.
Hag 2. Thing 1 McGee and thing 2 over here. Fuck.
As described in the trial of Gabriel Fernandez, the hardest part was probably the testimony from his siblings, Ezekiel and Virginia. However, because they were underage at the time of the trial, they weren't allowed to video record any of their portion of the trial. So unfortunately, I don't have any clips of that, but I am able to explain to you some of the things that they did say on trial because there are like transcripts that you can find. Also on the different series that you can watch, they do share some of the transcripts, so you can definitely go see that as well. But according to the testimony from both siblings, the abuse worsened in the months leading up to Gabriel's death. According to them, both of who, as I had mentioned, were minors. So just put in your brain, just seeing you're both minors, or they're both super young when this happened, and the fact that they had to witness all this happening to Gabriel, I don't even know how they themselves were able to go through that on a daily basis. Like, that in itself is traumatic. So they did say that a lot of times during the abuse, they had called Gabriel gay, as I had mentioned in the first episode. They punished him when he played with dolls. And they did confirm that exactly what the teacher had said as well, that Gabriel was forced to wear girl clothes to school as a form of bullying. Gabriel's siblings said that their mother had told them to lie to social workers whenever they came to check on them. And his brother Ezekiel said that they followed their mother's instructions because they were scared that she was going to do the same things to them that they were doing to Gabriel. Ezekiel told the jury that his brother suffered regular beatings, allegedly at the hands of Isario Aguirre and his mother, and he was gagged, bound without food or water for hours, locked in a small cabinet that Ezekiel called the box, and he was often left to sleep there as well. And he wasn't let out to go to use the bathroom. Apparently, the couple would laugh at him during the beatings. Ezekiel said that Aguirre would pick up Gabriel by the neck and drop him on the floor when he passed out. He used pepper spray on his face. As we mentioned in the first episode as well, he was forced to eat cat litter and cat feces. But this part was also something that really it grows me out. They both claimed that Asario Aguirre and Pearl Fernandez would force Gabriel to eat rotten food, and when he threw it up, they would make him eat his own vomit. They also claimed that they made Gabriel eat expired food, spoiled food as well. And he recalled one memory where they made him eat expired spinach. And of course, it made him vomit. And they made him stay at the table until he cleaned the table of the vomit and ate it. The teen who was 12-year-old Ezekiel when his brother Gabriel died said his mother and the boyfriend had allegedly threatened to beat him up if he alerted people to Gabriel's abuse. And of course, I mean, you're 12 years old, you're witnessing all this abuse going on to Gabriel. You're going to be scared shitless. So if there's anybody out there, because I know some people, I read certain things that say, why didn't the siblings do more? You need to understand that they were super young and scared shitless. I would be scared now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He also had told the jury that his mother and Aguirre allegedly focused their wrath on Gabriel and didn't abuse him or his sister. And Virginia, Gabriel's sister, also testified at the trial. And she said she regularly witnessed the beatings that her brother was forced to undergo. And she said on the night of Gabriel's death, she told the jury Aguirre knocked the air out of him, and when he fell over, he just didn't get back up. She then said they picked him up, they threw him in the shower, and they kept yelling at him to wake up. And at the point that Gabriel did not wake up, the mother decided to call the police, and she told them to grab a rag and clean whatever blood they could that was on the floor. And from all intents and purposes, from what I understand, she then had told them to, as I mentioned before, make up the lie and say that they were messing around and Gabriel had tripped and fall, and that's how he was knocked out. So all I can say is just I couldn't even picture being the siblings at all. I couldn't. It's probably
Yeah, I mean they're kids, but like, I don't know, my sister's 25 and I still go to bat for her. I can't imagine being a kid and feeling helpless.
yeah. And if you don't mind, Tanya, there's a couple more or a few more. I think there's 3 more YouTube videos, and this is the ending of the trial. So we're just going to look a little bit into the prosecutor's closing statement. Also, I was able to find the judge's sentencing statement, and his statement was so well put together that I wanted to put it in there. So if you
So, Leslie, this is a trial and a crime not many soon will forget. Explosive closing arguments by the prosecution. Again, Asario Aguirre on trial for the beating, torture, death of 8-year-old Gabriel Fernandez, and the prosecution having their closing arguments this morning. The prosecution seeking the death penalty for Aguirre. In closing arguments, the district attorney pointed to Aguirre in court, saying there is evil in this room, and he is sitting right there. The district attorney reminding the jury of Gabriel's injuries, putting up pictures of the little boy after he was beaten to death, telling the jury that Gabriel is not able to take the witness stand because he died after 8 months of torture. The prosecution also asking the jury to not make any excuses for Aguirre, saying the 37-year-old had 8 months to save Gabriel.
Almost every day, the defendant was sleeping in a bed, and inside that bedroom was Gabriel. sock was in his mouth, shoelace tied up his hands, a bandana was over his face, his ankles were handcuffed, and he was locked in there. Almost every day, you heard the testimony.
Now, the prosecution also reminding the jury of Gabriel Fernandez's injuries by putting up pictures of the 8-year-old after he was beaten to death. Now, Aguirre's defense has argued in the trial that Aguirre never intended to kill Gabriel, that the boy's death was accidental. Now, there were several family members in court today.
Sorry, I need to stop that. Never intended to kill him?
Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, like, you took a bat, you took a baton, you took a steel bat, you gagged him, you put him in a box, and you're telling me...
Including Gabriel's biological father, his grandfather, and his teacher who testified to his injuries. Many of them were in tears this morning during the prosecution's closing arguments. Prosecution expected to wrap up in about 15 or 20 minutes, and then the defense will have their chance to convince the jury that Aguirre did not intend to kill Gabriel Fernandez.
How dare you? How dare you be how dare you defend Aguirre? Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Like, Isario had no, innocent bone in his body.
Yeah, and I don't know. I like the fact that when you watch Presence, he does not look up.
Not a single
once.
bit. Because he's a fucking coward. He knows that the only person that he could beat up is children. You fucking put a grown-ass man his size there and watch and see how quickly he cowers to a fucking corner.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was privy to this case. I sat through it. I heard the evidence. I was privy to the photographs, coroner's photographs, the extent of the injuries and what have you. And this almost demands that comment be made about this case. It goes without saying that the conduct was horrendous, inhumane, and nothing short of evil. The repeated beatings, burning, starving, binding, shooting Gabriel with BBs that were embedded in different parts of his body, knocking his teeth out with a bat, locking him in a dark...
Knocking his teeth out with a bat, and you're going to come and defend and say that this wasn't intentional?
...cabinet while he's bound. And starving this poor child. It is unimaginable the pain that this child probably endured. And from what I heard, Gabriel was a kind, loving individual who just wanted to be loved. And so, you want to say that the conduct was animalistic, but that would be wrong. Because even animals know how to take care of their young, some to an extent that they will sacrifice their own lives in caring for their young. I remember saying years ago, a report on the news that and this at least sent the point home to me about animals, and there was this cat who had given birth to a litter of cats, and the house wherein the kittens were in was on fire. And that's what I think it made the news, because the fire department was trying to put the fire out, but each time the mother went in to retrieve a kitten, and she would emerge from the house by the scruff, holding the kitten by the scruff, and would manage one by one to bring him or her to safety. And the last time, the house was lost, and the fire department tried to keep this cat from going into the house, but it managed to elude them, went into the house, and they thought, well, she's lost. And I never forgot thinking she made it out of the house. She had the cat by the scruff, except that she was singed, burning her face. But the thing that really struck me was the cat was not blind. The intensity of the heat burned her eyes, but she never let go of that kitten. And so when you want to say, first instinct is to say, you know what, this is animalistic. No, it's beyond animalistic, because animals know how to take care of their young. I can only wish, I really do, that you both, in the middle of the night, you wake up and you think of the injuries that you subjected this poor young man, this poor 7-year-old, and that it tortures you. I rarely say that. It'll be a different type of torture, because you won't be in pain, physical pain. But I'm not sure that you're capable of doing that. But that's my wish. Moving on to the issue of sentencing, let the court state at this time that it has the opportunity to review the probation reports prepared by the probation department. I'm holding both up. I don't know if counsel has copies of this, but it did consider it. It did read it. And so keeping that in mind, I'm going to move to the issue of sentencing with respect to Cynthia Fernandez, and I'll ask counsel for Ms. Fernandez, pro Cynthia Fernandez, if you want to be heard on anything further.
No, Your Honor, we would submit on the report.
All right. Do the people wish to be heard on anything further? All right. Does counsel for the defendant waive time for arraignment for judgment and sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor, no legal cause.
Thank you. On February 15, 2018, the defendant, Pearl Cynthia Fernandez, entered a plea to murder in the first degree and further admitted the special circumstance of intentional murder by torture pursuant to Penal Code Section 190.2, subsection A18. The defendant having waived all appellate and habeas rights as part of the plea agreement. The court ultimately finding that the defendant's plea and waiver of all of her constitutional and statutory rights were made knowingly, willingly, voluntarily, and intelligently, and further that she understood all of the consequences of her plea. Moreover, the record reflects that the defendant confirmed that she was intellectually capable of entering and understanding her plea agreement. Accordingly, it is the judgment and sentence of this court that the defendant shall be sentenced to a term of life in prison without the possibility of parole for the underlying murder charge, coupled with the special torture special circumstance allegation under Penal Code Section 190.2, subsection A18. With respect to Mr. Isario Aguirre, I'll ask counsel, do you waive arraignment for judgment and sentencing?
Yes.
Any legal cause where judgment should not be pronounced?
None other than previously addressed.
All right. It is a judgment and sentence of this court that for the crime of murder in the first degree committed under the special circumstance that the murder was intentional and involved the infliction of torture, defendant Isario Aguirre shall be put to death within the walls of the California State Prison at San Quentin.
Hello, I'm. Why doesn't she get the death penalty?
Because I'll explain. Originally, they were going to try them together. I don't remember why they split the cases up, but they tried them separately. So what I think, he was tried first. This is what I'm pretty sure it is. And he got the death penalty. So, or she saw how bad his case was going. So she, before she even went through a whole trial, or even I think started it, she changed her plea from not guilty to guilty. And because she did that and she came to a plea agreement, they lowered her sentence.
She was just trying to save face. There was no part of her that freaking felt guilty.
Dumb bitch.
No.
I think many people close to me are just tired of hearing about Gabriel. My own school district thinks since my testimony is over that this is over and done. But for me, it will never go away. This will always be a part of me and something I will think about until the day I die. But I know who is truly to blame. We can blame different people for what should or should not have been done. And when it comes down to it, the defendants are the ones that ended his young life at just 7 years old. Instead of dwelling on what I or anyone else could have done differently, I try to think about how Gabriel, even after his death, is still helping others. In the classroom, he liked to help me file papers and staple homework packets and help his classmates with their reading. And now he has made changes in how child abuse cases are handled by the Department of Children and Family Services and by the police. His story has touched the lives of so many people that didn't even know him. I hope people are more aware of child abuse and how far it can go. And with this awareness, other children will not suffer the same fate as he did. I want to remember his enthusiasm for learning and what a good writer he was. I want to remember funny moments like when he wanted to help another student who really didn't want to be helped. I want to remember how strong he really was. I definitely know he was stronger than me. For the last 5 years, Gabriel has been number 28 in my classroom. I don't assign number 28 to another student because I feel it is only his number now.
That part gets me every time.
I know that if Gabriel had survived, he wouldn't have wanted his mom and Asaro to be punished for anything they did to him, because that is the kind of person he was. I think many people close.
That part gets me. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to just say, I guess, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I know this case was, again, the hardest one we've touched to date, for sure. But it needs to be talked about.
And I would just like to wish Gabriel a belated birthday. As of February 20th of this year, he would have been 20 years old.
Oh my God, he's so young.
Oh my God, he would have been 20.
Yep. And once again, these pictures that I'm pulling are what the family has posted on Gabriel's justice page on Facebook. It is public to view. His cousin, her email is chriscontreras0405@yahoo.com. She is advocating against child abuse, and she also advocates against murder media, which takes platforms like Netflix and tries to turn stories into like pop culture. And by all means, we would like to state that we are not those kind of people. We are a safe platform that is bringing light to cases that are very unfair, injustice, that hit home, that need to be heard. Because of a case like Gabriel's, there is changes made within the justice system of the US and the LA County, but there are so many holes that still need to be filled, and we as a collective know that this touches our hearts so hard, and we too want to be part of that change. So there is no conclusion for me on my part. I know I do end it by saying the usual, but my conclusion today is hug your friends, hug your family members. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and if they do confide in you, it's because you feel like a safe space for them.
And that's a beautiful thing to be that for someone.
Absolutely. And if they ever need help, just know that if you do help them, like Gabriel's teacher, you've helped him to your full extent. That there's nothing wrong with you, that there's nothing wrong with how you're going about it. It's just unfortunately the system, and it does fail, but it also learns from its mistakes. And even though this was like 13 years ago, I'm hoping that they have learned from their mistakes.
Agreed. As tough as this part 2 was, thank you for following along and thank you for listening, and hopefully it inspires or teaches you something.
That's right, betrayers. Until next time, have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.